Welcome back to HubSpot Hacks. We've been off for kind of 2 weeks, but we're going to be back on our every 2-week program. I'm really happy to kick this off with Cian from HubSpot. He'll introduce himself in a second. What we're going to be talking about today, which I think is very pertinent for a lot of customers and a lot of people using HubSpot, is the side that is probably most important, because your customers are going to bring you more customers. So to make sure that you have happy customers and you can deal with the success and the health and manage that, we're going to go through the customer success, health, and management hacks. And that's why we have Cian on today, who's going to, that's his forte, and working for HubSpot and doing that, and not only showing us how to do that in HubSpot and to come up with all kinds of ways to use the platform correctly, but also based on his experience dealing with quite a big book of customers in the UK and Ireland that was we got from. So, Cian, I'm going to actually let you share so you can move over and present, and then we can start the conversation.
Good.
You should be able to have the opportunity to share. Let me know.
Yeah, I should do. Can I get a thumbs up for everyone if you can
good.
see
That's
that?
good. Yeah.
All good.
So,
I'll get my face up on the screen and I'll kick it into presenter view. I see. That's still good for everyone?
yeah, we can see it good.
Yeah, good stuff. Hello, everyone. Nice to meet you. My name is Cian. I'm a customer success manager here at HubSpot, and I work in the UK market. I work our strategic accounts customers, so generally enterprise, multi-brand customers. And like Mark was saying, like, customer success now is more important than ever, because when you get customers, they bring you more customers. So I'll be going through a couple of things today just to show you how you can drive advocacy, how you can better serve your customers. So this is kind of a rough agenda today. Like, we'll be talking back and forth. Like, this, it seems quite casual, laid back type of webinar, which is always good. If anyone has any questions, don't hesitate, put them in the chat. More than happy for them to be fed to me. I can answer them on the fly. We could do it that way. That's no problem. There'll be time for Q&A at the end, but please ask questions throughout. I do want to start off and just kind of talk about like why you should choose HubSpot for customer success, because a big, I suppose, pushback I get from a lot of my customers is, well, HubSpot, it's not built for customer success. There's, dedicated customer success tools in there, but just because HubSpot doesn't have out of the box properties, for example, for customer success, doesn't mean you can't use it. So I'll go through that, then I'll walk through setting up the CRM, customer engagement, and health, KPIs, goals, and measurements. Take away questions on that. Like I said, any questions throughout, feel free to let me know.
I want to ask you a question before you kick this off. Which is kind of, I think the expectations sometimes that we have on the one hand, HubSpot is moving away from the hubs. I mean, the hubs exist there, but there are a bunch of features to be able to deal with, a certain processes inside the marketing, sales, and customer success stages.
Yeah.
But when you look at it sales, when you look at more as the admin on the HubSpot admin and kind of manages the entire process, the idea is to look more across the different platforms and, use workflows across, for sales, for marketing, for customer success, and so on and so forth, and kind of move away from, do I buy this hub? Obviously, the product is sold that way, but when you start using it, it kind of becomes one platform. So going back to what you were saying, is one of the questions or the expectations of customers that you're bumping into, and I'm hearing on our side as well, is like, okay, we have service, we have sales, we have marketing, but where's success? Kind of expecting kind of a HubSpot hub for success as well, which I know that doesn't exist, but I don't know if it is really needed. So so it's like, okay, do I need a different system? Do I need to integrate? Do I need a custom object? How do I manage that process? I think that, as you said, there'll be something that I know my customers is like, okay, well, let's just focus on the marketing and sales, and customer success people, I don't know, we'll have to deal with them afterwards.
Yeah. Good points. Like I think customer success is one of those funny departments where it's like hub agnostic, where it's not necessarily fully service, it's not fully sales. There's a little bit of marketing, it's some admin side of things. It's CRM all in all within that. Like the core part of customer success is, driving relationships, making sure your customers are looked after. So it's hard to kind of tie it down to one hub. Like you're saying, a lot of customers will think, I don't see a customer success hub, I'll just look for like a bolt-on product. But I'll show in a few slides, why that can sometimes be like a bad decision. And obviously I'm a small bit biased. I'm going to advocate for HubSpot, but I hope I can kind of paint a picture as to why HubSpot is just a good choice. If you don't currently have a customer success team, to maybe try launch one with HubSpot, or if you do have a customer success team, to bring them into HubSpot. That makes sense?
Okay. Yeah, that's great.
Good stuff. I'll kick it off. Like just an opening statement, it might seem a little bit silly for me to say this, but like HubSpot isn't an off-the-shelf customer success management platform. It's not purpose built for that, but right now HubSpot as a tool is quite malleable and you can make it do that. Like I said, customer success, it's hub agnostic. It's kind of more CRM and a little bit from everything within there. And all it takes is a small bit of customization to actually get it to where you want it to be. And while I say like it's not off the shelf, it's funny that with G2, we're actually ranked as the highest customer success tool comparative to other ones within there. So you go like that's live as of I got pulled that today within there, but you can see some of the more familiar ones like Gainsight in there is a big one, Churn Zero, Plan Hat is another one that we see a lot. So these are tools the customers bolt on to HubSpot, and what happens then is you get this kind of disjointed tech stack situation within there. Like the customer journey and the difficulty a lot of customers have right now is actually mapping out, where are we finding customers? How are we engaging with them? Like this is the traditional, what it looked like. You would have someone, marketing would engage with them, they become a prospect, sales would reach out, they'd do their thing, they become a customer, service then would take over. So that's kind of like your HubSpot customer success kind of area, tech support team, that kind of area. And then we would turn them into promoters and they would try and get more customers for us. This is what it then looked like, the classic funnel. But when you map it out, it looks a little bit more like this, where there's, I hope people can see that out of the faded gray, but there's a lot more touch points before someone actually becomes a customer. Even when they do then become a customer, all the touch points that can happen before they actually become a promoter. And where HubSpot really shines is being able to give you one centralized place where you can see all these interactions and be able to interact with them. I'll talk about it later on, where being a customer success manager, it all comes down to being able to see these interactions and being able to act on them and being able to better service your customers. I mean, this slide now is just a couple of examples of different tools that people have put in, but over like the last 10 years, what's happened is there's so many tools for different functions, one for saving like your data, one there for automation, one for generating your content. And people have this like tech stack bloat right now. And it's the same as happening with customer success. I've seen some customer success teams use 5 or 6 tools when really it could all just be done within HubSpot. And I'll show you how you can do that. I always use this slide. I've used different variations over the last couple of years. This is the MarTech map for 2022. This might look familiar to some people, but right now it's nearing 10,000 products. When I first started using this was maybe 2014, 2015, and it was in around like 3,000. So they do a good job of categorizing them, but like you can even see here from customer experience and service and success, it's got its own separate category that's bigger than even the same size as CRM. So it's so hard for people to choose which ones to go with. And that's why I'm always pushing people, just consolidate into one spot, just try and use HubSpot to do a lot of your stuff. And once you get one central view, you walk away from that disjointed tech stack, you get a better, fuller view of the customer that I'll talk about, and it helps you better service them. And I just include this slide, like just why to use HubSpot, key takeaways. Like I'll go into these a little bit more detail, but customizing connected, like I said, HubSpot's quite malleable now. There's a lot of good functionality being brought to help you customize CRM to better suit you and teams where there's not a specific hub for them, or the out-of-the-box functionality and layout doesn't work for you. With the journey mapping, you really want to be able to see, where did my customers start? How did they sell? And then post-sale, what's the onboarding looking like? How am I working on renewals? How am I working with upsells? Being able to do that in the one CRM walks away from that siloed data, and you get a better idea of like where you're driving influence, what's impacting revenue, how are customer success performing. You don't have people jumping in around systems. The measurement side of things obviously is a huge one. Like, is my outreach working? What do my customers think about me? How can I action that feedback that they're giving me? That's something that HubSpot does really, really well. And then finally, something that's heavily intertwined in this presentation is automation around things. Like for me as a customer success manager, a lot of my day is on Rails to a certain extent, where I'll get fed automations, I'll get fed alerts, I'll be told what's happening. It's not so much me going and seeking it out. That's quite old school, where someone will jump into the accounts and they'll be like, all right, what's happening in here? But now what everyone's moving more towards is automation, where you're telling the CSM or the customer success manager, hey, this person hasn't logged into their account in 30 days. Can you please reach out? Hey, this person gave a poor feedback survey. Can you reach out? And that's why HubSpot is so good for this type of thing, because you can have all that in HubSpot, all that feedback, and then automation to feed it all together. I'll pause there. Any questions?
So in essence, what you're saying is, if I understand correctly, one is let's try, if possible, consolidate to using one system, one CRM, for an array of reasons that we talked about. I think one of them is also pertinent in the last, especially in the last year, is that most companies, if the CFO is not running around to see how they can bring down costs, then he's probably not doing his job, or he's probably been fired by now then. But that is across the board, I think, in every single company in the world at the moment. And it's to look at your different tools. Are we using them? Do we need them? Do we need best of breed in each case? Which was kind of the way I was doing, is let's connect. And that's how you showed that slide, the best of breed of everything. And then we'll have the best version. Do we really need that? And can we kind of have one CRM as a basis and then use the different tools, which is not only just for the customer success, for everything. But I think that's one question. And then the journey mapping and measurement, then we'll go into in more information. But I think the automation for sure sounds like 100%. It makes sense, because it doesn't make sense that you're going to sit down and actually go through, this is my onboarding pipeline. And now, I'm just going to look at my customers on a daily basis. And if I said that on Tuesdays, I'm going to look at these 3 customers, if they interacted and did something that I should reach out to them, I don't know about that. And I think getting the information in your hands at the right time so that you can speak to them, and then we can speak, with our customers as well. I know when there's a certain issue, they don't reach out to us. We hear about it 3 days later, 4 days later. Sometimes it's already too late. They've already gone look for another solution, or they're not happy with that, and they've started a process of, okay, you know what, let's go and create another, get another solution to solve with that because it's not working. I reached out, but no one got back to me, or I've stopped using something, and so on and so forth. Interesting. I think that's very powerful then.
Yeah, most definitely. I really like you're just talking there about like a lot of CFOs, they are going out and looking for like more systems. Cost is like a big factor, but I know like you guys over at the agency, like value is a lot of the conversation people are having, like what's the value of having it in the one system? What will I get out of bringing these teams into there? And I think the value that HubSpot brings is like those gaps that you mentioned. So customers reaching out but not hearing from someone in 3 or 4 days, like how can HubSpot address that? And that's something that it does quite well. I'll move on. I just wonder how we for time.
Yeah, I think we can.
Okay, good stuff.
We're good.
So setting up the CRM. Let's go. I've got 2 things I want to cover off for this. One is the 360 view of the customer. Big buzzword. A lot of people are saying like, how can I get this full view of the customer, and how can I action on that? I'll go to that, and then I'll talk about the customer journey in a bit more detail. So this is something I'll probably repeat a couple of times throughout like the whole presentation, but like the strong relationships are really built whenever you have a good understanding of like what your customer is. That's like including their pain points, where they've had touch points with you previously, and then how do you actually service them? Like what are their needs and what are their wants? If you got all these different systems, it's very hard to kind of pin that down and get a full fleshed out picture of it. Whereas bring everything into HubSpot, keep it on one contact record, and have a system where you can customize and bring in all that data, it really helps you get a fuller picture of things and an idea of what your customer actually looks like. Like I put together this slide of like, these are only a couple of things, that some people like have in a CRM. Here are the main ones. Like the behavioral data is a big one for customer success managers. Like for me in particular, I want to look at what hubs do my customers have? What are they using? When are they using it? Do I see gaps there that I can reach out and say, why aren't you using this tool? I think this is a value adding tool for you. That's really important. Being able to look at demographic data, for example, so I know when to actually do outreach to my customers. When's a good time to connect with them? Their buy-in history, the correspondence. So if they're connecting with other teams, I'm able to see that and be able to go, hey, I know you were talking with such and such from sales, just wanted to follow up on that, and just that we're not crossing wires within there. And then the final thing is the previous feedback, just another example, which is something that I'll action a lot. I'm not sure if any of my customers are on. I can't see any of the names. I did send out the invite, but if someone submits, say, like a detractor score and like an NPS or gives like a poor rating, I'll get a notification asking me to reach out for that. And that's all stored within HubSpot, and this makes it really, really actionable. There's so many other things you can bring in here. This kind of a general idea, but you can imagine all these data points. You probably have so many systems for them. Like, why not just bring them into the one place? And on top of that, then not only can you bring in other data, but you can generate these. Like, I'm sure everyone's familiar with properties and they know what they are. But one thing I'd always say is when you're setting up your CRM for a customer success team is having customer success specific properties. That's probably quite small to read, but like on there, it says churn risk, the health scoring, which I will go through later and give you some examples on that. Like the best next product fit is another big one. And then like the renewal likelihood. All these things are, for me as a customer success manager, what I'm looking at and what other customer success managers are looking at. They want to be able to see in the CRM, right? What is the churn risk of this customer? Can I pull a report of all customers where the churn risk is high within that? These are all customizable. You can create these out of the box. It's much better than it was a couple of years ago. But the main thing on this is that you can report on all of them and you can trigger automation off the back of them as well.
And behavioral data, obviously I can use, if I have enterprise, I can use the event API and pull in that data, or I can create specific like usage. If it's a field per user, per contact, I can pull that in through the API from the product and then be able to measure usage and then add those in whatever gauge based on, as you said, like with HubSpot, you have all the data in front of you of who's using the portal, which hubs they're using, which features they're not using. I know from our partner, customer success mini portal that we have, I can see, usage and everything. But that for most customers, just using the APIs, I can pull it in and make some kind of dashboard to actually see what the behavioral side. Obviously, the demographics and everything should be in the CRM anyway.
Yeah, like it's funny you mentioned the behavioral events on enterprise. That is what I would say one of the biggest value adding tools that you can have, because you can bring in all these events and be able to see things like when someone's logged on, their usage, on-site actions, and it gives you a real wealth of kind of insight as to what people are actually doing, and then that kind of gives you a better idea of how you can service them. Like,
have you seen any tips? What happens if I don't have that enterprise? Because I've had a few customers that they said, listen, we're still a relatively small startup. We are a SaaS product. We do have that data, but I can't do it on an event based, and it's too early for us to migrate over to enterprise. Do you have any best practices and ways we can push? I mean, they can use obviously the basic contact API and push that data in. You got any tricks on getting that behavioral data, or at least the basics?
Yeah, one thing I will say is that is like a gray area. There's some customers who are like too small for enterprise, but they need like the functionality. And as much as I would love it to be like a la carte, where you can just kind of pick and choose different things from enterprise. If you don't have it, you can't use it. What you could do is just map them to custom properties, but what happens then is you run into the issue of property bloat in the CRM, and you don't get an accurate timeline of what those events are. They're just static on a property where you can see. So it might be good for things like last logged in date. You can have that as a property, but if you're looking at a sequence of actions that you want to see, you're not going to be able to get that unless you can bring in those behavioral events.
Unless I have a timestamp with a workflow that says every single time a proper event happens, I kind of, define that. But you got to think outside the box, what you're saying, and bring in the information that is at your fingertips anyway, as long as it's not something that's changing.
Most definitely.
Okay.
When it comes to like the view of a CRM, then like this is my demo account. It's kind of similar-ish to what I would see in HubSpot. We use HubSpot here at HubSpot for our contact records, and we use the CRM. But like for me, this is all customized. Like this over here on the left-hand side, this customer success kind of viewing card, that's customized. These are the properties that I want to see. What's the churn risk? What's the health? What's the best product fit for this customer? That's on the left-hand side. In the middle, then I just want to look at like what life cycle stage are they at. This is all really customizable now. And there's the CRM extension beta that's happening, where if you've got like another system, you can bring data in and have it show here on these cards. So this middle bit is customizable. You can change a bit on the right-hand side to show deals. I've got the onboarding object here, for example, within here. So for me as a customer success manager, I would have a different view to someone who's in sales, for example. And the way you should think about CRM is not one size fits all for every team. It's how do I set up the CRM to best serve the customer success team, to best serve a sales team, like showing me, say maybe like different properties at the sales team. It might not be the best use of my CRM real estate, if you want to call it that. So always be thinking about customization. What do I need to see at a glance? What do I need to have in front of me when I'm talking to the customer? Where can I see their journey to actually becoming a customer? That would be things like the deals here and the onboarding side of things. Again, all customizable. That's kind of the direction should be going.
And you can also save these views so that you don't have to set them up. It's that for the entire customer success team, they can have the same, and then each person can customize it for the next level specifically for them.
Yeah, most definitely. Everyone's moving away from one size fits all to customization. That's just the way things are going, and that's the way you'll see the HubSpot product evolve as well. Like all this is really good. Like here, I've just really shown like the properties that you have, like you put in these properties. But where HubSpot really shines to get the full 360 view, HubSpot platform, if you got external apps and systems. And what I mean is, if you're using things like Zoom or GoToWebinar, you're bringing that data into HubSpot. Any other tool, you're mapping it to HubSpot so you can get those interactions and you get the 360-degree view of the customer. I'm not going to sit here and say that HubSpot is perfect and you can move off everything into HubSpot. There's some instances where there's other tools where it's hard to migrate off them, but what HubSpot does well, it allows you to integrate and get all that 360 view of the contact on a contact timeline. Have
you created a specific saved view for the customer success, so that if I don't want to look at it on the table level with the specific fields like you showed that are relevant, where I go into the contact view or the company view, which just for the customer success team, I see what I'm interested in, and then I can actually go and update on the spot and edit it. But then I can see all the companies, as you said, like all the companies that their health is problematic in one step, and then the different fields and so on.
Yeah, most definitely. Like I obviously can't show you like my internal view at HubSpot. But what I do have is I have a number of views in our own CRM where I can see, give me customers who's got like a poor health check, give me customers who are renewing in the next couple of days, give me customers who are X, Y, and Z. If it's there in the CRM, I can pull it. And, I'm enabled to go in and get all these reports myself. I don't need to go to our ops team. I don't need to go to an analytics team to get that. I have it all there in front of my fingertips. Okay,
we can show afterwards and go into the photo and show the view, but I think everyone knows what I'm talking about with the contact or company views, where you see everything one, and we'll show you in a few minutes. But those can be customized, and that's another way of getting the same thing, but not just on contact by contact level, and just putting in the specific fields that are relevant for you guys.
Yeah. I just want to talk about the customer journey mapping very briefly as well, just because animations didn't feed in. This is like your typical post-sale journey. So someone purchases, sales rep sells them something. They come in, they go through onboarding. Classic kind of SaaS, even if it's like professional services type things, there's some kind of onboarding to a certain extent. And then after onboarding, the customer success manager will normally take over. And then after that, I'm a customer success manager. I see an upsell, I notify someone, pass it over to sales, they close it. And then after that, customers happy, they continue with HubSpot or whatever kind of your product is. This is like the classic post-sale journey. And it's what a lot of people follow. But what you kind of should be thinking about is, how do I put this like on rails? How do I make sure that we've got a standardized process for everyone and that our customers are getting high quality touch points and engagements throughout their post-sale journey? Really, we're thinking about how do we turn these customers into advocates? How do we give them a really good customer experience? And that's where you kind of need to be moving your strategy towards automation with that. I've got a couple of slides where I'll walk through what that automation might look like. And but first I want to go through what does that look like in HubSpot in terms of a setup, in terms of pipelines. So when people think about how do I track upsells and renewals, like you can just track them on a normal pipeline that you would have. This is probably the easiest way to do it, is where you just create a new pipeline, where you keep your renewals, create a pipeline where you keep your upsells. You can use the out of the box functionality that HubSpot has when it comes to tracking recurring revenue, for tracking churn within there. But just create new pipelines. Don't put them all into the same pipeline and maybe try and set up a couple of different properties. Just create a brand new one and move them into that. And then that's going to give you visibility. You're going to be able to report on them as well. You probably noticed that I don't have onboarding in there. I've recently kind of changed tact as to what I recommend for an onboarding pipeline. You can put into a deals pipeline, but I find that moving it into a custom object just gives you that extra layer of flexibility and customization within your CRM. And then you can associate that object with different records. So if a deal comes in, you can have an onboarding record attached to that deal. That gives you something to report on. You can trigger automations off it as well. And that onboarding pipeline, I realize this is quite small as well, but that onboarding pipeline would look identical to a deals pipeline, but it's different in the sense that it's not tracking a revenue figure. It's just tracking actions within there. And you're probably wondering, okay.
And you can automate that as well, correct? So you're saying like it could be a closed one that automatically creates a new object that's connected to that deal.
Yes.
Makes you the owner as the customer success manager. And then the actual handshake between sales and customer success is actually happening automatically, and then you go into that pipeline, start managing that process with the customer, correct?
Most definitely, yeah. Like the last thing you want is for like a deal to close, and then like whoever, if an onboarding rep or the customer success manager, sales manager is out of office, nothing gets created. I forget about things all the time. But like that's why I'm relying on automation a lot. You want these processes set up, and I actually do have a couple of slides covering them off now. But this is one. If you take away one slide, take away this one. Like let the robot do the work for you. Like let the automation engine carry all these tasks for setting things up, creating these records, reminding you of things. I've got a lot of automation to kind of go through, but I'll go through the onboarding one first. So this is just a classic example, and don't worry about taking notes. Like I'll send across the deck after to everyone. I can show the automations in my test portal after as well. But here's an example of like create the onboarding record post sale. So when a deal moves to closed one, just create the onboarding record, set the onboarding owner I set it to myself. You can then send an email to the customer being like, your onboarding is going to start. You'll be talking to this person. They're going to reach out, or you can book a meeting, and then send an email to me internally if I'm doing the onboarding, saying, hey, we've assigned you a new customer. This is the intertwining of sales, marketing, services all together. And this is what I was talking about when I said this is what HubSpot does quite well. When all your teams work out of the one place, you can have one very simple workflow that takes care of everything. You don't have to worry about, manually going in and creating an onboarding record, going in and manually assigning someone. You can let the robot do everything. And then not only when you have your onboarding record created, but you can actually set up reminders being like, hey, after 30 days, create a task for me to reach out to see how onboarding is going. In HubSpot, you'll have an onboarding specialist or a partner will do the onboarding. But me, I'll check in like 30, 60 days. You're like, hey, I'm your customer success manager. You'll be talking to me after. I just want to see where everything is going. And I get reminded of those things. I've got my own reminder set up in the CRM as well. But again, putting the day on rails, what it does is it lends itself to higher quality actions, and they're timely as well. That's one big takeaway. If you write down one word, it's timely. Engaging at the right time is when you get the best customer experiences. And this is like the final one, the handoff to the CSM after. So when you get to the last stage of your onboarding, you can have it moved by automation. It can be manually moved. But then I get an email. They get an email saying you've finished your onboarding. You're now going to be talking to your customer success manager. I get an email saying they've finished. Then the status is complete. You can edit this as well to, remind me to reach out or to remind someone else internally. The key takeaway here is that it's all automated within here.
And then what, like 3 months or 45 or 2 months before the renewal, then they get added to the pipeline, and then that moves over to someone whose job is to make sure that they renew and have that conversation with them?
Yes, that's actually the next slide that I have.
Okay.
With the renewal side of things, this is the other side of the coin, post sales and customer service. Some places have it that customer success look after onboarding, renewals, ongoing relationships. I've just set it up in this instance that I'm looking after the renewals. Sometimes you'll have dedicated renewal managers. But here, when the deal moves to close one, not only are we creating the onboarding record, you're creating a renewal record as well. So that's something active in the CRM that can be worked on, that can be reported on, that you can see looking ahead, like what revenue do we have further down the line with our customers. So all that's automated.
You create it from day one. So when it becomes closed one, you create those two objects. You create the new pipeline and the onboarding, and then just on the and then you have different stages inside the renewal pipeline. I'm assuming based on time going forward.
Yeah, time moving forward. So like here you can see again, these screenshots are quite small, but you can zoom in whenever I send it across. Here, this is done for like a standard like 365-day contract within here. So when a deal is, the renewal is created, I wait 90 days. After that, I move it to the 3-month check-in stage of the renewal. I get a notification saying, hey, check in, it's been 90 days. And then off the back of that, I wait another 90 days and then it gets moved to the next stage. So automation is always moving the deal along. And it's always notifying me of like, hey, this renews in, 90 days. This renewal is happening in 30 days. But in here, again, it's all on Rails. It's all reminding me. For me to keep track of all my renewals, for all my customers, for all their hubs, would just be like too much of like a mental load to actually have to deal with. Whereas with automation, I just get reminded. I have views in the CRM to tell me, hey, what customers are coming up for renewal next quarter. Put in there. This is the final thing I wanted to put in. I just wanted to put in something to kind of touch on connecting up HubSpot to like other systems that you have. So this is an example of like when a renewal deal moves to like closed one, the renewal pipeline, you can maybe use a webhook to, send a request to Sendoso is a software for like gift sending. So I've seen some people connect that up, and when they renew, send someone out like a bottle of champagne or cookies is one thing you'll get sent out. And then after that 7 days, remind me to be like, hey, we sent something out to your customer. Can you follow up? These are high quality engagements, timely interactions, really improving the customer experience and positioning myself and the company as someone who's like looking after them. That's what it's all about. Like improving customer experience, making sure that they're looked after, that you're engaging with them. Engagements is really the name of the game here. Any questions on that?
And then the tasks are also, actually have a question here. Let's see if we can do this. They're using the Service Hub pipeline to track the renewal deal aging with swim lanes based on how many days until the renewal.
Yes.
And it's super easy for the sales managers to keep eyes on everything. So they've kind of departmented it, I think, so that they can
Nice.
look at the different stages, so they can see how many do we have to interact with. Is it the way you guys are doing it inside the portal as well? So you have the kind of 3 months, 6 months, and it's different activities towards the 365 days.
Yeah, just kind of give you some insight to it. Like, I'm sure anyone who has a HubSpot subscription, they might have engaged with a contract manager. They are people who would like own the renewal within like a certain window of time. So let's say when someone renews a HubSpot or buys a subscription, I'll look after a relationship, but there's a swim lane there for a contract manager to step in at a certain time. So I can't see who put in that question, but it sounds like they've got a good setup of what they have.
Got it. Interesting. Okay.
One final follow-up on these is that these are all well and good in that they put my day on rails. They'll say, hey, this is happening now. You should maybe do this. But a next layer to that in customer success would be like having a playbook of sorts of how you would actually engage with that. Like right now, playbooks is one of the tools that's getting a lot of add-on functionality. The advanced recommendations is something that was only launched in the last couple of weeks, whereby if you have a property, you can have a recommended playbook based on that property. So in this example, I've said that show this playbook when you're at the 9-month check-in stage of the renewal and churn likelihood is high. So this is the collaboration of like the CSM using the CRM and the properties they've created, flagging risk, and then based on risk that you've identified earlier, when it gets to a certain stage, it's going to recommend a playbook for you. This is where you kind of should be thinking, right, I'm updating my properties, when is this going to be important? The playbooks are there to help enable customer success managers. So if you're a customer success manager, or you manage a customer success ops team, you should be thinking about playbooks. How do I enable the customer success team to better serve customers? How do I kind of standardize that process for managing risk in our CRM for our current customers? A really good, really underutilized tool for some reason amongst our customers, but just something I said I'd throw in there.
So I have a question, because we had a session a while back around playbooks with Carl at the beginning. I think it was really powerful. And we're coming up with the use cases, and I think it's great that HubSpot's also in the last couple of months is actually seeing this taking off now, because I think it's really powerful. But I do have one question. I know the playbook itself will be triggered just like the trigger that you're showing in the moment, and from a contact level, pop up in playbooks on the right-hand side. Mm-hmm. But how do I automate that I need to go into that? So I'll have a task that will say, you should look at this contact now. And then when I go into the contact, the suggested playbook will pop up, because I need to click into it, obviously. It doesn't pop up automatically.
No,
so it's one step before, correct? So you'll say, I hit the 9. It's what you, if I understand correctly, anyone that's under risk 9 months before, I get a task with an email that says go into this contact or the company, and then the playbook is waiting there for me, and then I know how to deal with that situation.
Yeah, it will display. You'll need to click into it, obviously, but yeah.
But I need to set up that alert as well, so that that's the one step before. Otherwise, I won't, because it's not that I'm going to go through all my contacts and find where I have playbooks popping up.
Yeah, that's it. One thing I will say is that the playbooks underutilized. Be careful about like oversaturating on the playbook side of things. Like, have them for specific use cases. Like, while you do want the day to be on Rails to a certain extent, you don't want the role to be on Rails, if that makes sense. So you want to see them to have some flexibility to be able to engage with their customers and kind of ask them the questions that they want to. These playbooks are an enablement tool to help them. I'll just finish off with this slide before we move on to like talk about customer engagements and health, but like quality over quantity is key. You'll notice there in those automations I put in, there's not an oversaturation of engagements. They come in at the right time. They're timely, related to events that are happening during the customer's life cycle post-sale. Like the example I had there with, say, Sendoso, sending someone out something after they renewed. These type of high quality engagements around milestones in the customer lifecycle, that's what we should be thinking towards. Coming in and sending like 3 emails a week to your customers with like product updates, it adds some value, but not as much as really thinking about when should I engage, when should I book in time my customers, making the engagements count. Like I said, if you time your engagements better, it's just going to lead to a much more cohesive customer experience, and they're going to stay with you. You're going to increase your retention rates with that. I'll move on to customer health and engagement side of things. Unless anyone has any questions about that last slide.
There's just one question here, I think, before we move on. David's asking about the other criteria you gave a glimpse of earlier when showing the CMS cards, such as the churn risk and customer health, automated in the way that you have things configured, or they're manually reviewed and updated? In other words, do you have triggers that you're also going to say, okay, I've hit, if I'm assuming, similar to what we were talking about, they've got to 15%, 20%, or high risk, then it pops up.
Yeah, great question. It's kind of linked with the customer health side of things. So those properties I showed earlier, like churn likelihood, churn risk, those can either be manual or automated. They can be automated by either building a custom score or integrating data from like other sources. So if there's low usage, for example, or they can be manual, where it's kind of like, yeah, I engage in my customer. I know they're not happy with the tool. They've expressed interest to move to something else. I'm going to set the churn likelihood risk as high, and I'm going to flag that early on. For individual contributors, so just normal customer success managers, not their managers, updating those properties are really important, because you report up what risk is in the book and what customers are likely to renew, what customers are likely to churn. Because for the manager, they need to see, are we going to hit quota this month? Are we going to hit quota this year? So as much as it's an important tool for customer success managers to update that to help organize their day, it's used to manage up as well in there. I will talk a little bit more about that automatic changing of the risk in a few slides, because I do think it's interesting and something everyone should try maybe after the session, as like a little kind of homework exercise, if you will. This is, I think, just a really interesting slide. Customer health is directly proportional to customer engagements. It sounds like very, very simple, but if you engage with your customers, they're likely going to be more healthy. It's so rare that you have like a touchless customer, but they're like super happy with the tool and they're advocates and they shout for you online and they upgrade. It just doesn't really happen. Whereas if you want a healthy customer, you're going to be speaking with them regularly. You're going to be engaging them. And those engagements, there's two ways to it. There's the proactive side and the reactive side to that. So my day is built up of both of these things. I do some proactive outreach. I have it blocked off my calendar. I've got some reactive outreach that I do based on triggers that happen in the CRM. You can see a couple of examples there. The proactive side of things is usually more positive. It's always, me reaching out for something to see how everyone's getting on, or I'll share a win or some product updates. All's good. But the reactive side of things, in my experience, they generally tend to be, not always, but they generally tend to be some kind of negative thing that you need to action, whether it's a pain point, someone's given some negative feedback. You can have reactive outreach to good feedback as well. But these are the type of things you need to track in the CRM. And if you want a good customer success team and good customer success processes, you should be looking at, right, how can I use HubSpot for the reactive side of things? Automation is the way you do it. Same with proactive in there as well. Like this slide is just one example. Like if I have the check-in, classic check-in, so to close date in the deal, wait 180 days, check-in. That's proactive, very simple, but very, very powerful for a customer success manager. The reactive side of things is, say someone gives like a really bad NPS survey. You might be like, why is 7 in there? 6 and 7, that sounds quite good. Anything under 8 is a detractor score. And that you should be looking for some feedback, like, hey, where's that gap? How can we bridge it? How can I help with that? You'll notice as well in that automation that I have. So we're seeing like, what was the last NPS survey? That's an NPS that was sent out with HubSpot. The next step is enrolling them in a sequence. So it's automating my day again. Whereas if someone gives a poor survey rating, I don't have to go in and look and maybe manually, send an email. I can just set it up in that, hey, here's a sequence I send out to someone when they give a bad NPS score. And it says, why did you give a bad score? I'd love to hear feedback. Here's my calendar link, book in some time. So this is kind of how you should be thinking, particularly if you've got like a high volume book of business. Um, Enrolling in sequences based on these like negative triggers, the reactive outreach is kind of where you should be heading to give your customer success team more time to maybe manage the renewals, look at the upsells, the higher value engagements. Where something like this might just be someone saying, I don't like the way the forecast tool works, you know. So that's something to think about. And it's something that a whole lot of people don't do. You'd be surprised how few people actually track all the reactive outreach and have plans for them. Anyone have any questions?
I think that's really powerful because, us as an agency, as a service company, in most cases, we're having a weekly call with the customer, but then on the different levels, reach out to speak to the different, it's our account manager, our customer success is working with the customer, so they're engaging, but then obviously it's important for someone else to reach out at a certain time and say, are you overall happy? And then, but I think this is really important because one thing that I've learned in the last 15 years is that when you don't hear anything from the customer, you should get really worried.
Yeah.
So I'd rather hear bad things and obviously hopefully good things, because if they're bad things, at least I can fix it. It's an opportunity to shine for the customer and deal with it. It's when you don't hear anything, then you don't know about it, number one. Number two, you're not putting any like NPS or negative behavior. If you're not reaching out to get them to at least give that feedback or speaking to them on every once in a while, then if there's something that's bad happening, you don't even know about it. And then that's the worst situation, because then we move to, G2 and all kinds of places where, and we can't even find them online anymore because we moved to WhatsApp groups where people actually are really rating vendors, products, everything in life at the moment. And that's where people are choosing a new solution. So I think that having that plan in place and that it's automated and it's not something that you have to do, that it's part of the process, I think is essential and really important. And it's kind of something that has to happen in every single company. It's even if the company is relatively small.
Yeah, definitely. Like these negative behaviors, friction points, that's what you should be looking for. I think it's very funny you mentioned there that like people get so irate online. I can't remember who said it, but if you do something really good for the customer, they'll tell 2 people. Do something really bad for the customer, they tell 10 people. Who just love to argue and give out online. Let's move on to customer health real quick. Are we for time? Okay, it's a little bit left. Like how do you define customer health? Like it really depends. I've seen it done so many different ways for different customers. Like the actual models you can use, like here's 3 examples put in there. So different ones. Again, apologies for the size of this. I just want to get it all on one slide. You can build dynamic scoring in HubSpot that's done off events, interactions with things. You can give negative scoring based on like survey responses or last activity dates, or if they have deals open. You can build all that out based on your knowledge of your customer. You can have like a static finger in the air kind of number where you're like, okay, I say out of 100, this customer is probably a 20 within there. That's just a customer success manager gauging, not very accurate. You could have external data sources piping into HubSpot, like something like Power BI or BigQuery, where you do all your equations, you got all your multiple sources of data, whatever it is, and you bring that back into HubSpot. I've seen it done that way as well. Really, what you're probably looking at to get like a good idea of customer health is more like a blended score. So you got all 3 of these together, a combination of sort of dynamic scoring, a static figure of sorts, which might be, I don't know, just a general score or weighted score that someone might give it, and then maybe some external data sources all piped in to build a health score within there. There's so many different ways of doing it. It's so hard for me to say this is the right way. It's really dependent on your business and what you offer up. Like if you're a SaaS company and you have like an application or a product, it's probably going to be based a lot around behaviors, feedback, in-app actions. If you're a professional services company, like if you're an accountant, for example, it's probably going to be something a little bit more basic, a little bit more static within there. But what you should really be thinking about is, if we've got a health score in place and a scoring model built out, how do we action that within the CRM? And this is a classic workflow that you would have where if you have a customer, you have a health score assigned, you can just run a workflow repeatedly if you have Operations Hub, repeatedly every day or every week, every month, where it will just run through all the scores again, and then based on those scores, would assign them churn risk likelihood. It can assign tasks to people. It can update a kind of a traffic light system, which is green, amber, red within there, and notify customer success managers. This is how some of my customers are thinking around how do we classify health and how do we let people know. Having some kind of schedule for someone to reach out and be able to look at the health of customers is really, really important. But it's impossible for me to say exactly what your health score model should look like.
But even if you start simple, you're saying that one is I should automate it to have something that it can be actionable, and then that information gets to the customer success team so that they can actually reach out at the right time when it hits that threshold. So, which is in any way is an event in itself that allows them to, reach out and check up what's happening.
Yeah, actionable is the key word there. Actionable, reportable is one I would tack on to that as well. So that's kind of what I have to say on health scores. It's a simple science, but an imperfect one. You can be as simple as you want. You can be as complex as you want. But as long as it's actionable, reportable, and it gives you an idea, like really what you're looking for here is a gauge on something. There's never a case where you go, that customer has a health score of 55. They're definitely going to renew. What you're looking for is some indicators that say, this customer looks like they might churn. I should reach out. Or this customer looks really, really healthy. Maybe I can not reach out this week, leave it to another time.
Got it. Okay.
I'll finish off on the KPIs, goals, and measurements, and then I think we've got some time for questions at the end. On the metric side of things, when you're thinking about customer success, leading and lagging indicators are how you should be thinking about it. What are the forward-looking actions that are leading to success, and what are the looking back the way actions for that? Like your lagging things like your churn rate, your health scores, your NPS that give you a look back into the future, whereas these leading indicators will give you a look into like your potential renewals that are coming up. So if you see that engagements are high, health scores are high, product adoption is good, people are engaging with you and attending meetings, those are all leading indicators to a healthy like list of customers, a bucket of customers. Whereas your lagging indicators will tell you like, oh, we had 20% of our customers churn last month. Why was that? So this is kind of actionable to a certain extent, but you need to look at the two together and kind of blend them. These will be different for each company, but these are some of the core ones that I would say take away today and kind of have a look at, particularly the health score, product adoption, and these engagements. It's all about engagements. Okay, so I'll just kind of end on this with the goals. Now, I can't remember exactly when it was. It was recently. Up until recently, you could only do it goals based on like meetings, calls, like revenue in the CRM. Now you can do it by properties that you have in there. You can have hundreds of different combinations of aggregations of custom properties for tracking goals in HubSpot. So customer success now can actually go in and be like, okay, can I track the number of onboardings I've completed? Can I track the number of 90-day renewal reach outs I've done? Can I track some other property within there? So you're going to get visibility on your kind of path to quota from an engagement standpoint, and something you really couldn't do, and it's something that I'm really excited about in HubSpot. Okay.
That's really cool. That's really cool.
Yeah, it really, really is. I would recommend everyone kind of have a look at that. Again, goals for some reason underutilized tool, heavily utilized by sales for revenue, but not so much for the engagement side for some reason. This is the final slide on here.
I have a question. Upsells.
Yeah. Yes.
If we're a service company or a SaaS company, it doesn't make a difference on the side of the HubSpot, more tools. You would manage it, as you said, as a separate pipeline, and then what you would have also like a field like these are the services that they're using, or these are the hubs they're using, and now here's an opportunity to introduce them, or we're having a conversation So I know the operational hub, the customer comes back to us and say, listen, I want to integrate with something, or I need to use a webhook. So that's kind of a no-brainer. It's, okay, well, you're going to have to use the operational hub pro. And then on the other hand, that opens a huge door to them to allow to do all kinds of stuff. But to be proactive with that stuff, it's having in the CRM what tools they're using, what products, what services, whatever, depending what kind of company you have.
Yeah.
And then having that data coming in based on usage as well. And then
Yes.
finding what different indicators that could lead that maybe they're interested in another service, and then get the customer success team to have a conversation around that.
Yeah. The main thing is, I remember a couple of slides. It was like one of my first slides where I had a property. I was like, next best product fit. That can be like a manual update thing. Like in HubSpot, it's no secret that you use Marketing Hub and Sales Hub. It's likely we're going to reach out and say, why aren't you using Service Hub or CMS Hub or one of our other hubs? Product matching is something that you can do in the background, and you can set up some simple automation to say they're using product A and product B. We should recommend product C. You can do it automated based on usage or other things you pipe into HubSpot, or the customer success manager who has good insight into the account can update that manually, and that can trigger some automation in the background. And that automation might be it notifies the sales team, or it notifies the marketing team, where it says, hey, the customer success manager thinks that this customer is a good fit for, let's just say, Sales Hub, because they have a sales team and they use SalesLoft, for example. The marketing team will get that, and they might send them some comms around, hey, here's the benefits of using Sales Hub. It's like a soft sell to a certain extent. And what that's doing is driving interest in the product. This is the benefit of HubSpot. Yeah, everything in the CRM, all the teams collaborating in there, and they can connect and talk with one another, which is something you just can't do with disjointed systems. This is the final slide on things like the key takeaway is like interactions are what drive the relationships within there. And with HubSpot, you should be looking at how can I actually improve the quality of those engagements and the time I reach out to people. And the way you do that is by tracking, the renewals. You track your onboarding, you track milestones in the customer's life cycle, and you engage based on those things. You focus on proactive outreach that's high quality, and the reactive outreach for what you said, Mark, those situations where, someone's not happy, but if you wait 3 or 4 days, they might look somewhere else for another tool or another service. It's something that HubSpot does really, really well. If you go onto our blog, we've any amount of resources. The guys, Mark and Perry, are fantastic for this type of stuff. Help you get set up, particularly with some of the more complex things. Definitely engage with them. They're really, really great. So I'll just finish off by saying, while there isn't a customer success hub, you can do it all in HubSpot, and I would recommend that you do that. And that is pretty much it on that. I think we're just on time. I'm happy to stay over for questions if anyone has any.
Yeah, first of all, thank you very much. I think that's been very, very interesting. And I know that even internally here, we have part of the setup, and part of this is going to be set up within a week, and then I'll be able to send you some notes to see what you think of it. But I think this is kind of a no-brainer for every company. It doesn't matter what they have on at least on a basic level. You have the CRM, you manage it. It's kind of just allow your business to take it to the next level, and you got to look after your customers. That's obviously the most important part of it, after your employees. Perry, any other questions that we haven't touched on that came through? Obviously, we can
nope.
follow up.
I think that's a wrap. Keep it at the 1 hour limit.
Okay, great. So we will
we'll see you soon.
Yeah, so we will send out the recording and the deck, and then we have some, I think, a bit more resources that we put together, so we can follow up, and whoever joined us and whoever couldn't join us can actually get that information. Any questions you guys have, then you can reach out.
Bye for now.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you very much. Thanks a lot.